Welcome to Testaments with Jerry. This is the first in a series of oral testaments whose original format may have been a short-form autobiography, eulogy, obituary, or memoir created by an individual for their friends, family, or loved ones. We may also post end-of-life interviews with people before they are deceased. The purpose is to preserve the memories of those close to us and to revive the experiences for listeners with the intent that every person should be cherished for their individual gift of life. My name is Jerry Flanagan, and this is an autobiography written by my father, Robert Carey Flanagan, for his children. He was born on October 18, 1931. He died in 1999. My best guess is that he wrote this in January of 1998. I recorded this during Thanksgiving weekend in 2025. I am publishing this to honor my dad and to share with my family as an appreciation for him being such a wonderful father who we loved and admired very much. Part 1. My name is Robert Carey Flanagan, and I was born October 18, 1931, at the Suburban Hospital in Southgate, California, a city just east of South Central Los Angeles. My parents were William Anthony Flanagan and Alice Elizabeth Carey Flanagan. My middle name was my mother's maiden name. I had two sisters, Helen McIntosh and Lucille Breslin, and one brother, William George Flanagan, known as Bud. At the time of my birth, my parents lived at 701 West 75th Street, Los Angeles, California. Our phone number was Pleasant 4455. The house was a large white frame house that had a large covered porch on the front. It also had a large sunroom on the front, which was converted into a bedroom. Behind this house were two one-bedroom houses. When my sisters and brother got married, they lived in these houses for short periods of time. Bud and Lucille were both called Flip when they were young. I inherited the nickname when I was 10. I have been known as Flip ever since. My schooling began at 68th Street Grammar School. When I was in the 3rd grade, my parents sent me to St. Michael's Catholic School. My future bride transferred from St. Columban's to St. Michael's in the 4th grade. Even at that early age, the priest and nuns realized that we had a special relationship. When I was about 8 years old, I went out to play with the neighborhood kids who were all older than me. We went for a ride in an old car that had a rumble seat, and that was where I sat. We went to an area known as Devil's Dip, and the car rolled over, and I was thrown out. I woke up in the Georgia Street Receiving Hospital. As a result of the accident, I have never been able to ride carnival rides or anything that goes upside down. Part 2. World War II. On December 7, 1941, the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, and it marked the start of World War II. I was riding my bicycle in the neighborhood when I heard about it. I didn't even know where Pearl Harbor was. I remember a few things about this period in history, such as air raid sirens being installed at many intersections. The government also put searchlights and anti-aircraft guns throughout the city. They had what were known as barrage balloons. They were shaped like blimps, but were only 2/3 the size. They contained helium and were tethered to the ground with a cable. These were intended to deter enemy aircraft. Possible military targets, such as aircraft manufacturing plants, which were also called defense plants, were camouflaged with netting and dark colors. Over the netting, they constructed what appeared from the air to look like housing tracks. They had frequent air raid drills called blackouts. On one occasion, the alarm sounded, the searchlights went on, and the anti-aircraft guns were firing for about 15 minutes. The only problem was that they shot at the area of the concentrated searchlights and didn't move. To this day, I don't know what happened that night, and I don't think anyone ever found out either. Each neighborhood had volunteers known as air raid wardens. My father was one. Their duties were to make sure that everyone turned their lights off during a blackout and to assist in damage control should there actually be a bombing. Part 3. Education and sports. When I was in the 8th grade, I participated in a grammar school basketball tournament at Mount Carmel High School. In the first game, we defeated the tournament favorite, and I was named to the all-tournament team. In the 9th grade, Dorothy went to Catholic Girls High School, and I went to Mount Carmel, an all-boys school. While I was there, I participated in several sports. As a freshman, I beat the best school miler in an inter-class meet. I went on to run 3-mile races against public schools. I always found out who the favorite was because I was sure it wasn't me. I would pace myself with the favorite. I took second place twice and third place once. It didn't take long to discover that track wasn't my sport. I found myself getting sick before the races in anticipation, and I would hide from the track coach. I tried football, but the basketball coach put the kibosh on that, so I decided to concentrate on basketball. I was selected for the all-tournament team for the Western States tournament, and I was also named to the All-Catholic and All-Southwest Catholic teams. In college, while attending El Camino College, I was named to the All-Metropolitan Conference team. By the way, our neighbor Jim Klein and I were on the same basketball team at El Camino. He also was in the Navy at the same time as I was, and became an L.A. cop about a year before me. He and his wife Joanne came to visit us after we bought our house and ended up buying the one across the street. And as they say, the rest is history. I was under consideration for a basketball scholarship to St. Mary's, but a teammate from El Camino had entered the Army. It was during the Korean War, and he was almost killed immediately. I reevaluated my goals and enlisted in the Navy. They gave me a test right in the recruitment office, and they told me I had a couple of options. The first one would be flight school, and the second one would be Naval Air. I passed on flight school because of the Devil's Dip incident and my inability to perform acrobatics. Part 4. The military and marriage. I went to boot camp in San Diego. After that, I was put on a troop train with destination Jacksonville, Florida. The train was vintage 1900. There was no air conditioning, and the windows opened by sliding them. The smoke from the engine was probably wood burning, and it came in through the windows. I was wearing a white uniform, and by the time I got to Florida, it was black. We ate standing up to tables set up in the freight cars. After completing my training in Jacksonville, I was given a short leave. I elected to hitchhike home. I was lucky enough to catch a ride at the gate that took me all the way to California. We alternated driving and drove straight through. Dorothy and I had been dating other people, but we always kept in touch. I spent 2 weeks on military leave at home. It was during this leave that Dorothy asked me to marry her. Naturally, I said yes, and if you believe this, you are my favorite child. After my leave, I went to Memphis, Tennessee, to complete my training in a specialized school. After this training, I decided to hitchhike home again. I wasn't as fortunate as I was the first time. It was one short ride after another, and by the time I got to some small town in Texas, I got on a Greyhound bus and slept all the way to L.A. Part 5. The Korean War and a Growing Family. We got married on Memorial Day, May 30th, 1952, at St. Michael's Church. Most of the attendants were grammar school friends. Our first home was an apartment over a garage next door to Jerry and Patty Traynor. I commuted home on weekends. I had been assigned to a dive bomber squadron at Miramar Naval Air Station near La Jolla. Unfortunately, this shore duty was to be short-lived. The squadron was assigned to a 9-month tour of duty aboard the USS Enterprise. It was the largest aircraft carrier in the Pacific. It had been in the Atlantic Fleet, but was too large to go through the Panama Canal, so it came around the Horn of South America. During the cruise, we visited Hawaii, Hong Kong, Tokyo, and several other ports in Japan. I did my share of shopping. We have a picture album depicting some of the voyage. We didn't experience too many hostilities. On one occasion, however, 3 Korean MiG jets came within 10 miles of the ship, traveling at 600 miles per hour was close enough for planes from our ship to intercept them and shoot them all down within a minute and a half. The entire incident was played over the ship's intercom. I was acquainted with 9 people who didn't make the final trip home. One was the guy who bunked under me. He walked into a propeller. The other 8 were pilots. They were shot down, but their survival remained uncertain. They carried signal mirrors attached to their life vests to signal their downed location. The Koreans weren't stupid and would use these to signal the planes looking for the downed pilots, and they were usually right below an anti-aircraft installation. I had a close call once. I was a metalsmith who worked on the planes, and I worked days. When I got transferred to nights, a plane came in with a live bomb on it, and the bomb exploded right where I would have been if I hadn't been transferred to nights. Fortunately, I was asleep in my bunk. Evidently, I made the commute to L.A. one too many times. 3 weeks before my return, Dorothy had Jerry and J.J. at the Naval Hospital in Corona. When I got home from Korea, we set up housekeeping in federal housing in La Jolla. Our address was 202 Torrey Pines Road and is currently the campus of the University of California, San Diego. I completed my naval career by being assigned to a seaplane squadron at North Island Naval Air Station, where I spent the last 2 years of my enlistment. Part 6, Early Career. In 1955, we moved back to L.A. I went to work for the Douglas Aircraft Company. I became discouraged because I knew more about the job than my bosses. After that, I went to work for Tom Ports in construction. We had gone to grammar and high school together, and I learned the basics of construction from him. His paychecks bounced, and by the time they were made good, we had just enough money for a down payment for a new house where we've lived since October 15th, 1956. Our original address was 9642 South McDuff Street because we were supposedly in county territory. Then a year later, we were incorporated into the city of Anaheim, and our address changed to 708 MacDuff Street. After these jobs, I sought greater stability and applied to the Los Angeles Police Department, which accepted just 1 in 24 applicants. I passed the written and oral exams, but when I went for the physical exam, I failed because of my eyesight. I had started wearing glasses when I left the service. As I walked out of the physical exam, the doctor called me back in and said he had never done this before, but he was going to pass me. While going through the police academy, I enrolled in night school at El Camino College. I would leave the house at 6 a.m. and get back about 10:30 p.m. When we moved to Anaheim, I transferred to Cal State, Los Angeles. I finally received my Bachelor of Arts degree in police science in 1962. When I started on the job, I found that nobody else wore glasses. When I was working in a police radio car, I would always take my glasses off when stopping a suspect. I would place them on the dashboard. My partners would try them, and several guys found out they also needed glasses. Part 7. Early Police Work. My first assignment when I graduated from the police academy was the Lincoln Heights Jail in Boyle Heights. That's in East L.A., and I was there for a year and then transferred to 77th Street Patrol. I had a lot of fascinating experiences, too many to describe, really, but here are a couple of those I remember. One night, my partner and I stopped a car for a routine violation. The occupant was in possession of 35 pounds of heroin. The narcotics division knew of him for a year, but could never catch him. That was a feather in our caps, or to put it in cop talk, a good bust. Another night when working alone as a sergeant, I took a ride-along who was a visiting officer from New Mexico. He was dressed in a t-shirt, blue jeans, and sandals. While driving down Broadway, I saw a suspect climbing in through the lower portion of a glass front door of a jewelry store. He saw us and started running. I chased him in the police car. 4 times he changed directions while I was chasing him in second gear and reverse. It looked like he would get away on a side street. As he got to the corner, I fired 1 shot. He went down on one knee, but got back up and turned down another side street. I hadn't hit him, but about this time, the passenger door flew open and the New Mexico officer took off running. He came walking back about 2 minutes later. He had the suspect by the neck and said, "This is the most exciting thing I've ever experienced. I can't wait to get home and tell everybody about it." I left the uniform assignment and went to a plain clothes assignment called Felony Car, still within the 77th Street station. I drove an unmarked car. I had a friend who I had worked with in uniform who asked me to help him get into a similar assignment. I did, and he was accepted. There were always 3 men assigned to work a car. That way there were always 2 men working and 1 man off. I had excessive overtime on the books, so I took a day off. My friend took my place, and while responding to a robbery in progress call, he was shot and killed. Needless to say, the incident left me shaken. Part 8. Sergeant Flanagan. Even though I had worked a variety of assignments within the busiest police station in the city, it was obvious to me I couldn't get promoted without vice or detective experience. I applied for vice, but was told I was too big. If they had turned me down because I was white, I could have understood, but too big? I went into the office and told them I was tired of the clientele at 77th Street, and within 3 days I was transferred to Central Division. I was interviewed by the captain, and he said I was no bigger than he was, and he assigned me to vice for 18 months. I found that the vice problems consisted of prostitution, gays, mostly transvestites, and organized Chinese gambling. I studied the gambling problem and found that no arrests had been made, even though they knew how it worked. The gambling parlors were always upstairs. There was always a lookout downstairs who would signal the gamblers of the police presence. By the time the police got upstairs, the gambling paraphernalia was replaced with items associated with a social club, and everyone would be sitting around eating. Although I had only been there about 10 days, I formulated a plan where we went through a hotel and went up on the roof. We took a ladder with us, which broke down into 4 pieces. We crawled down to an area above the gambling room. We taped the ladder together and lowered ourselves onto a theater marquee located right outside of the gambling room. The lookout never saw us. I stuck 2 butcher knives through the window and cut a peephole so I could see inside and learn what they were playing. One of the players reached down and pulled on the knife blades, wondering what they were. By that time, I had seen what I needed to see, and we busted it up and arrested 50 gamblers. They had a lawyer on call and were out within a short time, but they never contested the arrests. One thing we learned was that they all carried several $1,000s, and that most of them had guns for protection. After the arrests, an administrator, who was also from Vice, showed up at the scene. I thought he showed up a little too fast and concluded that the Chinese had called him and that he might be dirty. After this incident, I never shared any information with administrators from the Vice squad. I got my nephew Jack Breslin a job in Central Vice, and about a year later he proved my suspicions right and got an indictment against the admin from Vice. A couple of weeks after my Vice tour, I was promoted to sergeant. I was again assigned to the 77th Street station. I worked for a year as a uniformed sergeant and then transferred into the detective division, working juvenile and burglary investigations. The department then instituted a new rank called Investigator III. I was promoted to this rank, and I assumed the responsibility of heading the section that investigated crimes against persons, that is, robberies and robbery homicides. Part 9. Incidents while in robbery and homicide. I became very proficient in the robbery and homicide area of investigation. I got to the point that I could predict what type of commercial robberies would occur and when and where. Too bad I don't have this talent with the lottery. I always interviewed the prospective victim in person and gave him or her instructions. On one such occasion, I told the victim that we would know when the robbery was going down. I told him that the telephone would ring and that he should tell the suspects he was expecting a call and that he should answer it. The suspect let him answer it. The victim told the suspect that the call was for him. I would have given anything to see the expression on his face. When he came on the line, I said, "This is the police. If you are robbing this place, I want you and your partner to put your guns on the bar and walk out the front door with your hands up." Needless to say, they did so. On another occasion, I went to a bar and told the owner that I thought that he might be held up and that the suspects would put him and all the bar patrons in the restroom. I told him he should tell everyone to lie on the floor until they heard a knock on the door and somebody identifying themselves as police officers, and then they could get up. This robbery went down just as I had predicted. Unfortunately, 2 of the bar patrons stood up in the restroom. The 2 suspects were armed with sawed-off shotguns and a 6-inch revolver. One was shot and killed, leaving the front door. The other one was shot and killed, leaving the back door. I had used personnel from Metro Division for this stakeout. They specialize in this type of police work, and they use shotguns. The background for the shooting at the rear door appeared to be a solid structure, but it turned out to be a window covered with plywood. One shotgun blast penetrated the plywood and killed the 2 patrons standing up in the restroom. I was called before several investigative bodies, including the grand jury. Fortunately, I had recorded my instructions to the bar owner, so I came out smelling like a rose. One unfortunate aspect of this shooting was that one of the patrons standing up in the restroom was the uncle of my secretary. Things were tense around the office for a while after that. Sometime thereafter, a newly appointed captain was assigned to 77th Street Detectives. His name was Bernie Parks, and he had no experience in a detective division. He scheduled a meeting for the day of his arrival and had the 4 of us with my rank in the office. Because we had the most crime in the city and yet were considered the most efficient detective division in the city, we thought it wise to acquaint him with the detective work. The first words out of his mouth were, "I want you to know that all of your men are liars." This didn't set too well with us. I became the unofficial spokesman of the group because of my time on the job and refuted his accusations. After this meeting, I did a little research into his personal history. He had come through the ranks by working small office jobs and working each one for a short period of time before transferring to a similar type of job. He had no experience in a major assignment. He was a politician and not a police administrator, and his appointment was a result of affirmative action, and I became a thorn in his side. The department opened a new police station at 108th and Main Street called Southeast Division. The boundaries of 77th Street were changed, and the new station had roughly the same boundaries as the old 77th. It was a new building and had piped-in music and carpeting. I was asked to go over there in the same position. I agreed, but guess who followed me? When I retired on January 23, 1982, I had 125 people attend my retirement party. Bernie Parks was noticeably absent because he had been ordered not to attend by the chief of police. I always worked a part-time job during my career, and one of those jobs was 12 hours every weekend at the world-famous original Pantry Café in Los Angeles at 9th and Figueroa. This job helped pay tuition fees for the kids and construction expenses for expanding the house. I worked under 3 different owners, the last one being Richard Riordan, who became the mayor of Los Angeles. Part 10. Family Man. I put my early construction experience to work and over a period of 2.5 years doubled the size of our house. Just to give you an idea of how prices have changed and how much you can save by doing it yourself, consider this. The family room cost us $2,700 and the upstairs cost $7,000. We never refinanced, so we were able to keep the 4.5% loan on the house, keeping the payments the same for 30 years. At about the same time, I coached Jerry in Little League with Alex Matheson. I had no experience in baseball, and I didn't particularly like the game, but I figured that common sense would get me through the season. We lost the first 2 games, but went on to win the next 22 and took first place. Jerry was self-taught, and I believed him to be the best player in the league. I felt that if he played high school baseball, he would be offered a college scholarship. He decided that baseball was too slow, so he took up basketball. I purposely did not encourage him to play basketball, but I didn't discourage it either. I didn't want to be an undue influence. The 2 most important decisions I made in my lifetime were marrying your mother and going on the LAPD. Part 11, Health Problems. My health started going down the toilet in 1991 at age 60. I doubt whether it is hereditary, but I'll list the symptoms and treatments for your information. It started with getting 7 painful nodules in my left leg. These nodules then began appearing on my right leg. I could draw circles on the right leg and predict where they would appear, as they would appear in the exact same place as the left leg. After 2 or 3 years and seeing many different specialists, it was finally diagnosed as a neuropathy by a neurologist. I had been given prednisone from the very beginning because it was the only thing that would stop the nodules from forming, but this has resulted in side effects that are worse than the disease. First, I woke up one morning and couldn't see. I had full-blown cataracts and had to have them operated on. The prednisone also caused me to have severe osteoporosis, which culminated in 5 compressed fractures of the spine. I ended up bedridden for 7 months and have had a difficult time walking ever since. On a final note, I am extremely happy with the way our children have turned out, and I know Dorothy feels the same way. If you pattern your lives after your mother's, you will continue to be successful in life as a person and a parent. Conclusion. Well, that is my father's story as written by him in 1998. He died in 1999, and his health failed rather quickly after his autobiography was finished. The disease was never properly diagnosed, but progressed to the point where dementia limited his ability to communicate. He mentioned my sister, JJ, who was my twin sister, and she was taken from us in 2021 by lung cancer. I will share the eulogy I delivered for her soon. Please subscribe to our podcast and you will be notified when it's published. If you are interested in learning how you can revitalize the memory of a forgotten loved one by sharing a short written memoir or autobiography here on this platform, please drop us a message. Thanks for listening.